Hello, and welcome to the Killer Author Club, your favorite haunt for all things murder, mystery, and mayhem. Tonight, the one and only Julie Clark is in the hot seat. She'll be answering all of our burning questions about the Ghostwriter, fabulous book. So grab your list of questions, your poison, a cocktail or mocktail, and get ready to kill the lights.
Welcome to the Killer Author Club. 3 best-selling authors talking about killing, of the fictional kind, with the best thriller and suspense authors in the business. Killer conversations, killer cocktails, and killer guests, with your hosts, Kimberly Bell, Heather Gutenkopf, and Kara Ruda. This is the Killer Author Club.
Welcome to all our new blood and OG killers alike, whether you're watching live, catching the replay, or listening to the Killer Podcast. We are so glad you are here. I'm Killer Kimberly Bell.
I'm Killer Heather Gutenkopf.
And I'm Killer Kara Ruda.
Before we dive into the Ghostwriter, a couple of quick PSAs. If you love tonight's show and want more, check out the Killer Postmortem, the podcast exclusive after show where every guest confesses something deadly. Tonight's show will be available on your favorite podcasting app starting this Friday. Links to download at killerauthorclub.com. While you're there, make sure to sign up for our newsletter so you never miss our killer breaking news. Newsletters go out at the end of each month. No spam, we promise. All right, Kara, you want to introduce our lovely guest? Is she stuck?
I think she's stuck.
Oh,
no. I'll jump in. Julie Clark is the New York Times bestselling author of The Lies I Tell, The Last Flight, both of which were also #1 international bestsellers and have been translated into more than 25 languages. Amazing. She lives in Los Angeles with her family and 2 dogs. Find her at julieclarkauthor.com. Congrats, Julie, and welcome to the Killer Author Club hot seat.
Thank you. Happy to be here. You guys have such a cool vibe. I love this.
Well, we have so much fun, and we have so many questions about the Ghostwriter, but Can you start with telling us a little bit about what the book is about?
Sure. The Ghostwriter is about a ghostwriter named Olivia Dumont, and she has pretty much tanked her career in one panel, if you will, and she's kind of on the verge of having to sell her house, and no one's hiring her when her agent calls her with a pretty unusual request. Famous horror author Vincent Taylor wants her to write his last book. And what Vincent is even more famous for, or maybe infamous for, is being the only suspect in the brutal slayings of his brother and sister in 1975. He's refused to speak about it. He's refused to talk about it. But he wants Olivia, and only Olivia, to write this book. But what nobody knows, nobody in the world knows, is that Olivia is actually his estranged daughter. And when she realizes that it's going to be a memoir of what really happened in 1975, she knows that she has to take the job because she's the only person who can tell when he's lying.
So good. We loved it. We loved it. So readers, get chatty and start dropping your questions in the comments for us to ask of Killer Julie. But first, we are drinking what? So let's see what the killer cocktail is tonight. Maker wine or Dogtown beer. All right. Why does this pair well with this book?
Well, Maker Wine is a company that promotes female-owned, LGBTQ-friendly wineries from all over. They can these wines, and everybody is all like, canned wine. But I'm telling you, it's really, really good. They deliver to your door. And I would say that the cans have just a smidge more of an alcohol content than like a typical glass of wine.
Interesting.
So I'm just saying.
I love anything you can just pop open and drink.
I mean, it's really great. You can, my friends and I, we take them to the beach. We Don't do anything illegal, obviously.
Of
But
course.
but yeah, they're just really great, easy, sit on your back porch, pop a can open, and you're good to go. Yeah, and Dogtown beer. I am a native of Santa Monica, and if you know anything about Santa Monica, south side of Santa Monica, Venice, Dogtown is the it's what we are. It's who we are. It's a vibe. It's a thing.
Okay, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, well, I'll try it. So the Killers and I created the Killer Author Club so readers could get up and close and personal with their favorite thriller writers. This season's lineup is stacked with killers: Peter Swanson, Anthony Horowitz, Chevy Stevens, and our very own Killer Heather, plus so many more. For dates, times, past episodes, etc., serve to killerauthorclub.com. But tonight, we're here to talk about the Ghostwriter. Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review and says Clark effortlessly delivers on her clever metatextual premise in this devilish thriller, keeps readers guessing about Taylor's motives and guilt, all while playing scrupulously fair with the reader. Love it. Booklist also gave it a starred review. Dark, enigmatic, suspenseful, complex, thought-provoking, and heart-wrenching. This book is a riveting 5-star read. Library Journal had also lovely words to say, with a fast-paced plot that blurs boundaries between present and past, along with a psychologically compelling cast of characters. Clark's new thriller is perfect for fans of Lisa Jewell and will have readers reconsidering what it means to write, and rewrite personal stories.
Yeah.
Love it. So clearly, Julie, you are a devious, and we might even say devilish killer to echo Publishers Weekly. And now we need to know your answer to the killer question. Where do you kill?
I kill in my brown chair in my family room with a giant stack of books and maybe a can of wine or a bottle of beer and the TV remote. That's where I kill. Yeah.
The TV remote? Do you watch TV while you're writing?
No, but sometimes I need a break.
Yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I think that's a great place to kill. I like a couch or a chair better than a desk too.
It's too hard for me to write at a desk because I get distracted by things, which is a strange thing to say, but I feel like when I'm working at a desk, I have bills over here and I have, things, and it's just easier for me to be in bed in the early morning if that's when I'm writing, or in the living room, in the family room, sitting somewhere where I'm not tempted to look at other things.
Yeah, I get it. I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's talk about the ghostwriter. I love the concept of a ghostwriter having to confront her own ghosts in order to get her job done, which you set up as something she so desperately needs, right? She needs the money for it. And also kind of, I guess, to regain her position in as an author, right? Or as a ghostwriter. So tell us about Olivia and why she feels so strongly that her lineage is something she needs to keep secret.
She struggled growing up with Vincent as her father. He was not present. He was not well, abusing drugs, abusing alcohol, hiring someone to basically parent her. And when she's 14, he sends her away to boarding school out of the country so that it's even more challenging for her to come home. And so she felt abandoned by him and she felt let down by him. And every time he said he was going to show up for her, he didn't, or he showed up in a way that was not helpful or parental at all. So, she finally had enough, as, people of our generation sometimes need to do. They kind of decide that they're not going to have toxic people in their lives anymore. And sometimes that unfortunately happens to be parents. And so she decides that she doesn't want any connection with him anymore. When she was growing up, she never really thought that he had killed his siblings. Like, she just didn't think that that was something he would do. But then as he sort of started spiraling out of control, and then when she came back, to write the book, you know, she really realized how wrong she might have been, that it is possible, very possible. And there were some pretty good reasons why he may have wanted to or needed to. So it's a huge awakening for her. But she wanted to stand on her own 2 feet as a writer. She's not a fiction writer. She's a ghostwriter. So she's following in her father's footsteps, but trying to carve her own path at the same time by not doing what he does.
And when you were writing this, because the characters are so complex and I mean, they're just so emotionally deep, were the characters like their bonds and their enmeshment or whatever you want to call it, was that first, or did you have the suspense in your mind first? Like, how did you develop the story?
It's hard to say. And I think you guys will probably agree that, you know, when you get to this place right here, where you're talking to people who have read the book and want to know, this happened like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know what came first. It just kind of came. Because writing a book is like a multi-years long process. I think I started this book in the fall of 2022.
Wow.
So it was a long time coming and took a lot of time for me to write. And I would say for me always though, I generally veer more toward emotional connections and emotional arcs of my characters before I start to think about ways to build in what they know, what they don't know, whether they did it, whether they didn't do it. I mean, for a long time, I wasn't entirely sure who ended up killing Downey and Bob.
Really?
Yeah.
And as you're writing it, you didn't know as you were writing?
Well, as I was writing it, I had one idea that I started out with thinking that it should be, you know, that. And as I was writing it and getting to know my characters more, it became clear to me that that just wouldn't be in character with that person or people. So I decided that that was really not where I wanted to go. And I mean, again, as you know, when you get to that point where you think that you know how your book is going to go, and then you realize, oh crap, it's not going to go that way, you sort of panic a little bit, like, well, now what? You know, I don't know who did it. I don't know what's going to happen. And you kind of have to take a beat and breathe and sort of try to figure that out. But yeah, it changes.
Click on the TV and take a break.
Yeah, there you go. That's why the remote is handy.
What's happening on Dateline right now?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll give you some good ideas too.
Right.
It generally does. Although I can tell you the husband always does it or hire somebody to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as a child of the 70s, I loved how you alternated between 1975 and the present and using multiple perspectives. Why did you decide to kind of meld these timelines and point of views together? And did you write the book like 1975 all the way through, or did you space it out? And I loved the 70s references. It was great.
Yeah, me too.
I know. I mean, I'm partial to the 70s. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. So that era for me is special. And most of my childhood photographs are, you know, stuck into those little photo albums that have the sticky pages and the plastic.
Yep.
And then when the sticky wears off, they all kind of fall down to the bottom. And so for me, it was nice to just kind of go back to that era again. And setting it in Ojai was especially fun for me because Ojai in the 70s was not at all what Ojai is right now today. It was, you know, rural, quiet. It wasn't a tourist destination. It wasn't where wealthy Santa Barbarans and LA elite like have their vacation homes. It was very rural, and the kids there had a tremendous amount of freedom. And while I had a lot of freedom here in Santa Monica or Los Angeles, I didn't have that kind of freedom. So I really wanted to set it in a place where the 70s in particular were pretty free and loose.
And I loved how you were able to, the characters were like looking through old pictures, and how your description, it just totally thrust me back into the 70s, like the lighting, the haziness of the picture. It was just, I was completely transported.
And the freedom that we had as kids, right?
Yeah.
We got on our bike and we just went places.
Gone.
My parents had no idea where I was.
Right.
No.
And there were no cell phones. We were just
No
going.
trackers, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're like, be home before dark and
Mhm.
don't die. That's like, that was basically
Really,
it. Those were the
truly,
rules.
yeah, really and truly it was. And, yeah.
Yeah. Much more innocent time, seemingly, but then again, they're talking.
Can we talk about your research, what kind of research you did into Lewy body dementia? Because that wasn't, well, it was kind of new for me, but I think Robin Williams, right? Didn't he have that? So he kind of, at least for me, put that on the map. I had never heard of it before then, but
Yeah.
what kind of research did you do?
I had a friend, unfortunately, one of my childhood friends whose father was diagnosed with it probably around the time, maybe a little bit before the time that I started writing this book. And so I was aware of it. I wasn't quite sure what, the impact was on his dad. And so I knew that I wanted my character to have some cognitive decline. I wanted Vincent to not be reliable, not necessarily because he's a bad person, but because he's just unreliable because of reasons that are outside of his control. And so I didn't want to do Alzheimer's. I didn't want to do like any of the traditional things. And I felt like Lewy body really lent itself to this kind of condition because of the hallucination factor in it, where it's a very common symptom of Lewy body are the hallucinations. And so when Vincent starts hallucinating a little bit and seeing things that aren't there, and thinking that Olivia is somebody that she's not, I think it just lent itself to what I was trying to show, which was that when people who have secrets age, their secrets age with them. And so your time to ask them what happened and the time and opportunity for them to be honest about it is shrinking. And so, Olivia has to make a choice between like, do I want to have my dad back in my life again, even though I don't want him in my life, or because it's the only opportunity she has to actually find out what happened. And, you have to weigh what's important.
I thought it was super smart because you don't know what he's not saying because it's a secret or what he's not remembering correctly. Plus, like you said, it puts this ticking clock on it. She only has a limited amount of time to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, and his notes in his notebook. Oh my gosh, it's super scary too. Like it just went from like, oh, you feel compassion, and then all of a sudden you're terrified.
Yeah.
The page. Yeah. So well done.
Yeah. No, it was fun. And again, like I didn't want to do there was a diary in it, but like I didn't want to do the traditional, like the diary has all the answers, right? And so I really started kind of thinking about like, well, Super 8 films were really popular in the 70s, and Poppy seems to be the kind of person who would love to play around with that. And so having Super 8 films to, refer back to, or at least be looking for, I would say, I liked that idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really great addition too, because then you've got this visual history that you're trying to. I think my daughter's wedding video is on Super 8. That's what they shot.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah, it's really
Cool.
nice.
Yeah.
It's just it gives such a depth that you don't get. We're just not used to that kind of feeling anymore. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Did I read that this book was based on a real life story or incident, or inspired by?
Inspired by, I would say, not based. When I was growing up, there was a brutal murder in my hometown of two kids who came home after school, and somebody was in their house and they were brutally murdered. And it was always something that like we would talk about as kids, our parents. All of a sudden I had a babysitter after school and I was like, what's going on? Our parents didn't talk a lot about it. And it was always something that I thought about, and driving around, I kind of knew the neighborhood where it had happened. And it just was always something that was there. And so when I learned that there had been a third sibling who wasn't home at the time, I thought, oh, that's tragic. First of all, I mean, my God, can you imagine that happening? And, being the sibling of two people to whom that had happened, like, that's just horrifying. But then as a writer, I started thinking about, like, well, what was his life like afterward? And that was really what compelled me, not necessarily the specifics of their personal trauma, because it's not similar at all. What, happens in the Ghostwriter and what happened to them. But it is exploring the idea of, like, how does it impact you, not just as a sibling, but as the child of that sibling, right? And so trauma, we know, can be passed on through our DNA. And so how might that have impacted Olivia, and just how it impacted the community, right? And, I know people who were directly affected by that tragedy, and they're not over it. It is still 50 years, something, almost 50 years later, they're not over it, and they'll never be over it, and they'll never stop talking about it, and they'll never forget. And, like, so when things like that happen, the news moves on, but, like, it leaves everybody else back in that time, that moment. And so for me, again, not based on it all, but definitely, I would say more like triggered by, no, that's not a good word, but you know what I mean?
Got that memory that,
Yeah.
and I think those kind of, when you're a child or young adult, or when those happen in a community,
Oh yeah,
it sticks. We had one in our neighborhood as well, and, like, she walked from school and then she just was murdered, and I think about her all the time. The time.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Iowa, back in the day, Johnny Gosh, the newspaper boy who was abducted while on his paper route, was one of the first children on milk cartons, and how that changed. Like you said, I came home one day and, there were rules. There were rules, and it long lasting.
Yeah.
And I think our whole society changed after some of those events. And the way we raised our kids is so different than we were raised.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, like, too, I remember asking my mom about it at the time, and she was like, no, don't worry about it.
Right.
And, like, so when I was writing the book, I was like, do you remember when that happened? And she's like, oh, yes. Oh my goodness. And then now as an adult, she can say, like, this is what we thought. And, so-and-so lived right across the alley, and, and just a little bit more of the detail of that time, I think, as a parent too, and, like, how do you shield your kids from something like that? And knowing that they're all going to school and talking about it.
Of course.
So, it definitely impacted kids my age. And, we were only, I want to say maybe only 4 years younger than the youngest victim. So, we had older siblings that knew them and knew the family, and it was horrible. It was just horrible. So, yeah.
Terrifying.
Okay, on that happy note, Julie is giving away 2 copies of the Ghostwriter. You guys, it's so good. So you have to sign up for this everywhere we stream. Okay, but please make sure you shout out where you're from when you answer this question. Why do you think Julie titled this book The Ghostwriter? Easy one. Oh my
Why?
God.
Why in the world? So the killers are big fans of independent booksellers and want to support the ones our killer authors love. So Julie has chosen Pages in Manhattan Beach. So tell us why this bookstore is so special to you.
Way back at the very beginning of my publishing career, I had written a book that is not a thriller. It barely gets mentioned in my bio anymore. It was called The Ones We Choose. It was an upmarket women's fiction book. And Linda and her team at Pages were always just so supportive of me, and in a way that like a brand new author who sold almost no books, really appreciated. Right. And so, I just have always been partial to that store. My son worked there until he graduated high school as a bookseller and loved it. I just love the people. I love the vibe. So Manhattan Beach Pages is definitely, even though it's not my hometown, it's definitely like, it's the bookstore of my heart. Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll be dropping the link in the comments so you can order Julie's book along with any others on your wish list.
That's
Also, if you can get a first edition, we have these
Beautiful.
amazing,
That is fabulous.
so yeah, first edition. While supplies last, I don't know. They're not going to do it again. I know that because it's.
I bet. Yeah.
Really beautiful.
Amazing. Now I want one.
I know.
So obviously the killers love to read, and we love it when you share what you're reading in our Facebook group, post pictures, write reviews, ask for recommendations, and give yours. Tonight, though, we want to know, Julie, what are you reading?
Well, I just finished The Names by Florence Knapp, and oh my gosh, that book was so amazing. It made me think. Have you guys read it?
No. What's it called? The Names?
Names. It's about a woman. It's a little speculative, and it's about a woman who is in a really bad marriage, and they have a brand new baby and an older daughter, and she has to go to the registry to like register the baby's name. And the expectation is that she name him after his father, because it's a family tradition, right? His name is Gordon. And she really doesn't want to name him Gordon because she knows that like, I don't want my kid to grow up and be that, right? And so she's walking with her daughter to the registry. Her husband's like this very important doctor. And her daughter is like, well, you're going to name him Gordon, right? And the mom is like, I kind of wanted to name him something else. And the daughter said, oh, really? Like what? And she said, I really would like to name him Julian, which means like son of the father or something like that, right? And the daughter's like, well, I think we should name him Bear. And so that's kind of where the story breaks into 3 parts. And the book follows each of those different decisions.
Oh, I love it.
It shows kind of the effect of her decision on the child, the young boy, and who he grows up to become versus, the Julian and what happens in that life, and Bear and what happens in that life. And it's truly remarkable. I mean, truly, truly remarkable. I loved it. Loved it.
I love that. It's kind of like a sliding doors, but then different.
Very much. Yes. Very much so, which I loved. So
yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that.
Sure.
All right, you guys, we also have fabulous new releases we need to celebrate tonight. The first up is A Death on Corfu by Emily Sullivan. When Minnie Harper moves her family to the Greek island of Corfu, she expects quaint sea breezes and soft beaches. But when a young maid is found murdered, Minnie soon realizes island life isn't all sunshine and baklava. There's a bookshop link that will drop for that one. We also have Burned Bridges by John Gilstrap. Powerhouse retired FBI director, former field agent, and kick-ass mom, Irene Rivers, thought she left corpses and gunfights behind when she left the Bureau and moved to her own slice of heaven in rural Virginia, until her nephew discovers a body hidden in the woods, thrusting her into an electrifying game of cat and mouse with the region's most powerful and dangerous family. We'll also drop that link as well. All right, you guys, we have 5 paperback copies of A Death on Corfu and 5 paperback copies of Burned Bridges to give away to lucky US viewers. So comment if you'd like to win one and tell us where you're from. Good luck. And don't forget to check out the Killer's latest books.
That's right. Jill is not happy, but Killer Kara is, because her book is out in the world, a thriller about an ill-fated road trip that resurrects a married couple's darkest secrets.
Yeah. Yay. And you know who else isn't happy? The main characters in Heather's upcoming thriller, The Perfect Host, when their over-the-top gender reveal party goes off the rails. Pre-order this one out in November.
And Killer Kimberly also has a new book out, The Expat Affair, about 2 American expats in the deadly world of Amsterdam's diamond industry. Links for all of these coming up in the comments.
And that one is great. I've read that one. Kimberly and I are going to be talking in Scottsdale. Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
Yeah. So much
fun.
I'm excited. Great prep as well. So, well, and as you know, everyone, membership has its privileges. So if you're on Facebook, check out our private members only group called Killer Author Club, where every episode the killers choose a name from the hat to win a piece of swag: t-shirts, mugs, candles, totes, hats, all of which can be found at killerauthorclub.com. And tonight's winner is Burma Turner. So Burma, let us know where you're from, and we will get some swag sent right out to you.
That's right. Well, Julie, we have excellent news for you. You survived the Killer Author Club.
Yeah.
Woo! Yes, a close one. So tell us where our listeners and viewers can find you.
I am mainly on Instagram at Julie Clark Author. And that's about it. TikTok scares me. I am on there, but it scares me a little bit. It's very loud.
It is loud, but it's very funny.
You push on the thing, and it might just be my age, but like you open it up and you're just accosted with noise. Yeah. So I close it pretty quick after that.
I scroll hours and hours.
Same here on Julie Clark Author. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that does it for tonight's episode. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Join us back here in 2 weeks on July 1st when the one and only, I am going to not say her name right, but Clémence Michelin. I don't think that's right. But anyway,
we'll know by the time she shows up here.
We will. Golly, right. The book is awesome. I just finished it. She'll be talking about Our Last Resort. In the meantime, please find us wasting entirely too much time on Instagram and Facebook, and not me on TikTok, but some of us on TikTok. For time's upcoming schedule, past episodes, recipes, and merch, surf to killerauthorclub.com. Thanks so much for being part of the club.
Thank you.
That does it for tonight's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to catch our next show live, we're every other Tuesday night on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For times, upcoming schedule, and to catch up on past episodes, visit us at killerauthorclub.com. Happy reading. Now get on out there and kill that TBR.